Good morning, church. How are you? Um, Hi, baby. I just have to say, I want to thank everybody who supported us financially and prayerfully. We can't thank you enough. I want to tell this testimony without crying, and I've practiced so many times, and every time I cry, I'm going to get it right this time. Um, Peru was absolutely amazing. I went down there with so many expectations that were ripped apart the moment we landed there. The first thing was that Pastor Doug told us to have a missional mindset the entire time. And I didn't quite understand what that meant, like missional mindset. I mean, I'm going to speak to everybody. I'm going to love people. Yeah. But the language barrier, I think that was the hardest part because the longer you were with these people, the more you wanted to communicate. And it was hard. And so Pastor Doug told us that facial expressions mean everything. And I remember being in the kitchen with the ladies, and they were like talking to me as if I spoke Spanish. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, and then I could have said, yo no entienda, I don't know. But they knew by my facial expression that I didn't know. And so they called the interpreter over, and she was able to interpret what was being said. But the first day we got there, which was a Tuesday, we landed in Lima, and then we took the plane to Tacna. And we got to a restaurant. Now, everybody knows, especially Pastor Rick and Emma, that I've been talking about not eating anything that doesn't look like it should be eaten, right? And I'm a very picky eater. I don't even eat leftovers. And so I was really looking forward to seeing what God was going to do in this trip. And so I get to the restaurant, and they bring out like this whole table of food. And Brian, who's the missionary there, he's like, oh, this right here is cuy, which is fried guinea pig. And I was just so against it these months leading up to the trip. I'm like, I had a guinea pig. There's no way I'm eating a guinea pig. Like, there's no way. And then I get there, and Brian is like, this is cuy. And then I feasted. It was so good. It was amazing, right? We tried cow heart and raw octopus with the suction cup still on it, which was so good. I can't believe I'm telling you this. I can't believe I ate it. I can't believe I liked it. But the heart of what I want to tell you started on Wednesday. I was able to go on my first house visit, and we went to this house, and this lady had 6 kids, and 2 of them were younger, and her husband was abusive, and she literally talked with Adriana Goomer and myself for 2 hours. Those are the 2 translators that I went with. And she just talked about her life. And she wasn't really a believer, but she prayed, and she mentioned how her house almost burned down, or her house did burn down, and her family was a family of 8. And all she prayed for was a 2-bedroom house. And in my head, I couldn't fathom that, because out here, it's like we need more. We want more than we need, and she just wanted what she needed. And I couldn't comprehend it. And so she said she prayed for a 2-bedroom house, and the Lord delivered her. The Lord granted her a 2-bedroom house on the hill, on the squatter. It's called the squatter. They're squatter homes because they don't have a lot of money, and so the government owns the land. And so when you want to have a house, you have to buy your own materials and build your own house. And I'm talking to the translators. I'm like, what if you don't know how to build? And they're like, you just learn. And so some of these makeshift houses left me in tears because these are how people were living. And so she just continued to talk about how she was abused and how she took her husband back. And I recognized at that point that I really wasn't going to get much in, but some people just need to be heard. Some people just need you to listen. And so I figured that was what it was. So we just listened. We talked about the goodness of prayer, the goodness of God. And after I left, I was like, okay, Lord, that was cool. You had to walk up a hill to get there. So I was like, that was exercise, but it was cool. So the next day, on Thursday, July 19th, we go back to the church. And there was this woman who's had some mental illnesses. And Doug asked me, he was like, hey, Coy, I know you went yesterday on a house visit, but do you mind going again? This woman has some mental illnesses, and I would like you to talk to her. And I was like, yeah, sure, that's fine. So we get to the house, Adriana and Goomer, they're the interpreters that I was with for the most of the trip. We get to the house, and it's this woman, she's 29 years old, but she looks a little older, and that's because she said she's had a hard life. She's been married for 15 years, she told me, and her eldest son is 13. And so I'm sitting there, her name is Giovanna, and I'm sitting there and I'm listening to her, and at this point she's in tears because she's had to grow up earlier than expected, and she works in the pepper fields where she works from 2 a.m. to 2 p.m. and she only makes $10. And immediately my heart sank because I was like, what? $10 to support your entire family? And then she said because she works in the fields that she's developed beginning stages of lung cancer. And my heart sank even deeper because she's 29 years old. She's supporting, her husband wasn't there. She was supporting 2 kids. And this was all piling on her. And so she's crying even more. She told us how she's tried to take her life several times. And so in that moment, it was just, Lord, what do I say? And just sharing with her that we weren't designed to carry all the burdens that she was carrying. We weren't designed to walk this life alone. We were designed to partner with God. And when we partner with him, he comes in and he does something amazing. And in that moment, she gave her life to Christ for the first time. And it was a moment of rejoicing and letting her know that the angels are rejoicing over you in heaven. And to see her face just lift up. And I told her, I was like, look, it might be Thursday, but on Sunday, I'm coming back to get you, 9 a.m. I'll be here knocking on your door to come get you for church. And she's like, okay. And so we leave. And when we get back to the church, I'm like, man, Lord, how content I am with the things that I think I need. I mean, we were 2 weeks without a phone. And a phone I thought was a necessity, but it was just a comfort for me. It was something that I could be available to people at all the time. A TV, we didn't have TV out there, and I realized that I just watched TV to be entertained. It's not something that I needed. And so Peru showed me that everything that I thought was a necessity to me, you don't need. All I had out there was the team and Jesus, learning to stay and abide in him, learning to have natural joy even in the worst conditions. I mean, we were painting from like 10 a.m. to like 6 p.m. I was covered in paint, and I'm like, Lord, this is the most work I've done in so long. But it was so revitalizing because we were fixing up the Lord's house. We were laying down flooring. I mean, I literally felt like a carpenter because I was on my hands and knees gluing this concrete floor, rolling out the vinyl, and I'm like, man, Jesus, for you, but it was just a moment of realization. Like their homes, they didn't have carpet on their homes. They had rocks and dirt, and that's what they walked on. They didn't have walls in these homes. They had tarp. And so when the wind blew, the tarp blew. Half of their roofs were incomplete. So when it rained, I witnessed them get their jacket and their hood in their home. And I'm thinking, like, how convenient of me if it's cold to just turn on the heater. But this is how they live their life, and they're content. They're happy. And I found happiness in the most minuscule things. And so the verse that the Lord immediately brought to my mind was Ecclesiastes 12:8. Vanity, vanity, everything is vanity. The things that I thought I needed, the things that I worked hard for, don't get me wrong, it's also a gift of God, but it was like, Lord, I place so much value on those things. I place so much emphasis on those things. I mean, we had a 9-passenger van, and we had like 17 people in there. Literally, like we were sitting on top of people and we were happy. We were singing songs. Like, what? We were crammed. But it was just like, this is natural joy. This is what it feels like to be in the body of believers who are worshiping the same God you worship 4,600 miles away, who are praising the same God you praise 4,600 miles away. It was beautiful. And the last day we were there, we left on Friday, but Thursday they had like a little party for us. It was so cute. But before the party, we were all chilling in Brian's office, just relaxing. We're like, the day is done. And I'm walking, because I just came from the restroom, so I was walking up, and I happened to see Cheeky, which is Brian's wife, the missionary, Cheeky and Goomer. And they were like, hey, Coy, do you want to come on this house visit? And I'm like, sure, that's fine. And so I was able to go on my last house visit, and we went to this lady who we've seen the total of 12 days we were there. We've seen her at least 12 times. Her son was in the feeding program, and so she came every day to pick up her son. She had dogs. Let me tell you, side note, I love dogs. I'm obsessed with dogs, and Tacna is a dog town. They have dogs everywhere, everywhere. Dogs in the street, dogs crossing the street, dogs coming everywhere, to the point where I bought some dog food, and I went around the church feeding the dogs because they were very skinny, and they were very happy, but it was a dog town. So if any of you like dogs, Peru is where you need to be, right? And so we seen this lady who came with her dogs to pick up her son, and the dogs were so cute, they just stayed at the door. And we were loving on the dogs, loving on them, rubbing them, giving them pet names. And this is the same lady that I saw on my last house visit. So we go to the door, and we're just, how are you? And instantly she breaks down, instantly. And I'm like, what? And so they asked her, what is wrong? What issues are you having? Apparently, she lost her father 1 month prior. And so I'm like, I know that pain. I know that experience. I myself lost my father. And so it was a moment of just sharing with her that, God is close to the brokenhearted. The Bible says that every tear you shed, God collects. And just sharing with her out of my own pain, out of my own brokenness, because at 23 years old, I saw my dad die. And so I was just able to share with this woman the power of God and the care and the kindness and love that God provides when you feel like there's nobody there. And so she's crying, I'm crying. And in this moment, I'm telling her, like, te amo, I love you. But I didn't know, like, te amo was like an extreme kind of love. Like, they were like, don't use that one. And I was like, no, I really don't care. Te amo, I love you. I don't need to know you, but I love you. And it was just a feeling of being relational to people that I've never met before. And what brought it to my mind, what God brought to my mind is these 11 days, these 10 days that I was loving on this woman's dog, that I was just running up to her dogs and like hugging them, that this woman was the one who needed to be hugged. She was dealing with the pain of losing her father. She was dealing with the pain of loneliness. She was dealing with the pain of brokenness. And because I was so fixated on something that I'm used to, I have a dog, I wasn't fixated on her. And so I thought it was so amazing because Cheeky and Goomer, they didn't know my story when they invited me to go meet this woman. So it was an ordained moment of just telling this woman that you're not alone, that you may feel alone, but you're not alone. The Bible says that God will never leave nor forsake you. And so this trip brought a lot of things into perspective for me. This trip put my priorities or shifted my priorities. I mean, I've been home for 7 days, and I think I've watched like 20 minutes of TV. I've been home for 7 days, and I don't really, the first thing in the morning, I don't answer my phone. I spend my time with my father. And so I just want to thank you all for allowing me to go on this trip and not settle for things of convenience, but be missionally have a missional mindset. I mean, when we were out there, I don't know Spanish. but it was buenos dias, buenas noches, permiso. That means excuse me. You know, it was just a feeling of trying to be relational so they could feel, or for those who've never experienced God, for us to show the love of God to them, for us to be used by God. And so I encourage you all, if you've never been on a missions trip, to think about going, or if you just can't go, to have a missional mindset here and meet people where they are here and love people where they are here. So I just want to thank you all for allowing me the opportunity to go and for allowing me to share. Thank you.